And if you tell yourself that you did, you are already denying the very law that has governed every turning point of your life. Men who drift call it coincidence. Men who think call it cause. You are here because something within you has been listening long before your ears ever did. There is an unseen order at work in the affairs of men. It does not shout. It does not chase. It responds, and it responds only to those whose inner life has reached a certain pitch, a certain alignment, a certain readiness. You are reading these words because that inner signal has already been sent. Most men spend their lives broadcasting confusion and wondering why clarity never answers. They project fear and ask why opportunity avoids them. They rehearse doubt and call it realism, then grow bitter when life reflects it back with brutal accuracy. This is not punishment. It is precision. You have felt it before. That quiet sense that something is unfolding even when you could not yet name it. A pressure behind the eyes. A restlessness that sleep cannot cure. A pull toward knowledge that feels older than memory. That was not imagination. That was preparation. There comes a moment in every life when thought begins to organize itself, when desire sharpens instead of scatters, when questions stop wandering and start pointing in one direction. That moment is never announced. It is recognized. And recognition itself is proof of readiness. You have been told that wisdom must be searched for, chased, earned through years of wandering. That is half the truth. The other half is far more unsettling. Wisdom reveals itself only when the mind is tuned to receive it, and most men never adjust the dial. This message is not for the casual listener. It is not for the man who consumes words the way he consumes entertainment, chewing without digesting. It is for the one who senses that repetition has meaning, that certain ideas return because they are knocking, not haunting. If you feel an unusual stillness right now, do not dismiss it. Stillness is the signal that the mind has ceased resisting. It is the doorway through which instruction enters. Noise repels truth. Quiet invites it. That is why so few ever hear what has always been available. There is a law older than language that governs how ideas travel from the unseen into form. It does not move through force. It moves through harmony. When thought, desire, and belief reach agreement, the channel opens. When they conflict, the door remains sealed. Men ask why the same information transforms one life and leaves another untouched. They blame intelligence. They blame education. They blame luck. The answer is simpler and more severe. One man was tuned to receive, the other was not. You were tuned long before this moment, long before you realized it consciously. Your habits of thought, your private conversations with yourself, the silent questions you return to again and again, these were not idle. They were signals being sent, refined, strengthened. Nothing enters a life uninvited. Events, ideas, alliances, even delays, all arrive by invitation, conscious or unconscious. The tragedy of the masses is not that they are denied wisdom, but that they unknowingly refuse it through careless thinking. If you are expecting spectacle, you will be disappointed. Ancient wisdom does not announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, tests your attention, and withdraws if you treat it lightly. It demands respect before it offers power. There is a reason this message found you now and not years ago. There is a reason it did not appear when you were content to drift, to postpone, to excuse. Frequency is not mysticism. It is mental order. And order only forms when a man grows tired of disorder. You have reached that threshold. The point where vague wanting becomes definite hunger, where curiosity hardens into resolve, where the old explanations no longer satisfy. That inner dissatisfaction is not weakness. It is the signal that growth has begun. What you are about to encounter is not new. It is ancient. So ancient that it has been buried beneath modern noise, diluted by half-truths, mocked by those who profit from confusion. Yet it remains intact, waiting for minds disciplined enough to receive it. Do not rush. Speed is the enemy of understanding. Let each idea settle. Let it disturb you if it must. Disturbance is often the first sign that truth has struck something false you have been protecting. You may feel resistance rise as you listen further. That resistance is not danger. It is evidence. Evidence that something in you recognizes the implications of what is being revealed. Truth always threatens the comfortable arrangement of old habits. Most men spend their lives trying to change circumstances while guarding the very thinking that created them. That is like repainting a house whose foundation is cracked and wondering why the walls keep splitting. Wisdom begins at the foundation, and this is not motivation, it is orientation. Not encouragement, but alignment. The moment you understand how alignment works, you will stop chasing outcomes and start commanding causes. And when causes obey, effects have no choice. Pay attention to what you feel drawn to in these words. That attraction is not accidental, it is resonance. Like recognizes like. Order responds to order. Discipline answers discipline. This is how the invisible selects its students. If you listen as a spectator, nothing will change. If you listen as a participant, everything can. The difference lies not in the message, but in your willingness to obey what you recognize as true. You are not early. You are not late. You are precise. This moment has been assembling itself through your thoughts, your decisions, and even your mistakes. Nothing was wasted. Everything was instructional. The question is not whether this ancient wisdom is powerful. It has governed every great achievement recorded by history. The question is whether you will claim it deliberately or continue to brush against it unknowingly. Remain with me, not as a believer, but as a disciplined thinker. Suspend disbelief without surrendering judgment. Test what you hear against your own experience. You will find that the law has been working all along. You are simply about to see it clearly for the first time. Men speak often of chance, yet few examine what they truly mean by the word. Chance is merely a name given to causes too subtle for the undisciplined mind to trace. I have observed men of every station, from the laborer to the titan of industry, and I have never once witnessed a life altered by accident. Every decisive turn came as the result of forces long in motion, set into action by habits of thought formed quietly and repeated faithfully. There exists an order governing the movement of ideas into the affairs of men, just as surely as there is order governing the seasons. This order does not announce itself, It does not plead for attention. It operates with precision, responding only to what agrees with it. Men who drift move through this order blindly and call its effects mysterious. Men who think learn to recognize its patterns and call it law. The mind is not a passive vessel. It is a broadcasting instrument, sending forth its habitual thoughts with unfailing accuracy. What a man consistently thinks, he transmits. What he transmits, life reflects. This reflection is not judgment, nor reward, nor punishment. It is correspondence. As the echo answers the voice, so circumstances answer thought. Most men suppose that desire alone is sufficient to summon opportunity. They wish intensely, yet remain confused when opportunity does not respond. Desire without order is noise. It lacks direction. It lacks harmony. It lacks the inner agreement required to be heard by the forces that shape circumstance. Life does not respond to longing. It responds to alignment. Alignment is not emotion. It is agreement among a man's thoughts, his beliefs, and his actions. When these three stand in conflict, the signal is distorted. When they move in harmony, the signal gains strength. This harmony is what some sense instinctively and others never suspect. It is not mystical, it is exact. I have seen men of modest education command great enterprises, while men of learning remained subordinate. The difference lay not in knowledge, but in inner order. One man's thoughts moved in disciplined lines, while the others scattered themselves in contradiction. Life followed the disciplined thinker because discipline is recognizable to law. When a man repeatedly entertains the same questions, the same longings, the same silent inquiries, he is not wasting thought. He is refining a signal. Each repetition sharpens it. Each return strengthens it. The mind learns what it is preparing to receive by what it insists upon thinking. This is why certain ideas appear in a man's life again and again, taking new forms yet carrying the same essence. They are not haunting him. They are answering him. Thought seeks its likeness, just as water seeks its level. The man who understands this no longer dismisses repetition. He studies it. The great error of the masses is their belief that wisdom must be chased. Wisdom does not flee. It waits. It reveals itself only when the mind has reached sufficient order to recognize it. Many men stand in its presence daily and never see it, for the mind in confusion cannot perceive clarity. You may observe this law at work in every field of achievement. Two men read the same words. One is stirred, unsettled, compelled to reflection. The other remains untouched. The words did not change. The minds did. One was tuned to receive, the other was not. Men often ask why opportunity seems to favor certain individuals. They imagine favoritism where there is only correspondence. Opportunity answers the man whose thoughts have prepared a place for it. Preparation is not visible to the casual observer. It occurs inwardly, long before it manifests outwardly. This inward preparation frequently appears as dissatisfaction. A man becomes restless with explanations that once satisfied him. He grows impatient with shallow answers. He feels a pressure he cannot name, a sense that something is forming yet incomplete. This is not confusion. It is order beginning to emerge. Discomfort often precedes clarity. When old habits of thought begin to lose authority, the mind experiences tension. Many retreat at this point, mistaking discomfort for danger. Those who persist discover that the discomfort was merely the mind shedding disorder. I have known men who failed repeatedly, yet each failure stripped away illusion until only essentials remained. When such a man finally succeeded, observers called it sudden. It was not sudden. It was cumulative. His thinking had been aligning itself through adversity. The world is filled with men attempting to alter effects while guarding causes. They labor to change conditions without examining the thoughts that summoned them. This is like blaming the mirror for the reflection. Wisdom begins when a man turns his attention inward and studies his own mental habits. Thought is not idle. It is a form of action. Every thought carries direction. Even neglect is a direction. The mind left undisciplined does not remain neutral. It drifts. And drifting is not rest. It is surrender to disorder. Men who drift suppose themselves free because they resist structure. In truth, they are governed by habit, impulse, and the opinions of others. Order appears to them as restriction because they have never experienced its power. The disciplined thinker discovers a paradox. Limitation of thought produces freedom of action. When desire is organized, effort ceases to scatter. When effort ceases to scatter, results begin to accumulate. This accumulation is what the world recognizes as progress. Others begin to sense this change before the man himself fully understands it. His words grow measured. His decisions become deliberate. He no longer explains himself unnecessarily. There is an economy in his movements that commands quiet respect. Such a man does not announce his alignment. He demonstrates it. He no longer chases attention. Attention finds him. This is not charm. It is coherence. People respond instinctively to coherence because it is rare. I have observed that when a man's thinking reaches sufficient order, instruction appears without struggle. Books present themselves. Conversations arise unexpectedly. Ideas surface at moments of quiet reflection. The man imagines himself fortunate, unaware that his own thinking summoned these aids. Nothing enters a life uninvited. Invitations are sent through habit. Habit is formed by repetition. This is why repetition is not merely useful, but essential. Each repetition reinforces direction. Each repetition strengthens reception. Those who ridicule repetition do so because they mistake familiarity for mastery. To hear an idea often is not to possess it. Possession comes only when thought and conduct agree. Until then, repetition serves as training. I have advised many men to listen again to ideas they believed they already understood. Those who obeyed discovered layers previously unseen. Those who refused remained where they were. Pride is often disguised as certainty. There is no greater obstacle to wisdom than the belief that one already possesses it. The mind closed in self-satisfaction becomes sealed against instruction. Law does not break sealed vessels. It waits until they open. When you encounter an idea that disturbs your comfort, pause. Disturbance is not evidence of falsehood. It is often evidence that an old structure is being challenged. Truth rarely enters without rearranging furniture. The silent law governing mental alignment does not demand belief. It demands observation. Study your own experience honestly, and you will find its workings unmistakable. You will see that life has been answering you with relentless accuracy. If you're here now attending to these words, it is because your thinking has reached a point of readiness. This readiness was not sudden. It was cultivated through choices, reflections, disappointments, and silent decisions made long before this moment. You are not receiving instruction because you are favored. You are receiving it because you prepared for it. Preparation is rarely recognized while it is occurring. It reveals itself only when the answer arrives. Hold this understanding firmly. Your thoughts are not invisible to the forces shaping your life. They are instructions. Issue them carelessly and confusion will answer. Issue them with order and life will respond in kind. Repeat this truth until it becomes familiar, then repeat it until it becomes habit. My thoughts are disciplined, therefore my life responds with order. I invite only that which agrees with my purpose. In the next movement of this instruction, we shall examine the discipline required to maintain this alignment, for reception without attention quickly dissolves. Order must be guarded, or drift will reclaim its territory. Remain attentive. What follows will require it. The law that governs reception is simple, yet few submit themselves to its discipline. Nothing of value enters a careless mind. Attention is the gate through which all instruction must pass, and the gatekeeper cannot be bribed by desire alone. I have seen men burn with longing for advancement while their attention wandered in all directions, dissipating the very power they hoped would rescue them. Attention is not a talent bestowed upon a fortunate few. It is a habit cultivated by those who understand its worth. Whatever a man gives steady attention to grows in significance within his mind. Whatever he neglects diminishes regardless of its importance. Life responds accordingly, for it reflects not intention, but practice. Most men suppose that attention is automatic, something that occurs when interest is present. This belief is the first error. Interest may invite attention, but it cannot sustain it. Sustained attention requires discipline, and discipline is formed only through repeated effort. Without this effort, the mind slips into ease, and ease invites disorder. The undisciplined mind mistakes noise for activity. It consumes words rapidly, skimming surfaces, collecting impressions without digesting meaning. Such a mind may hear much and understand little. Wisdom does not submit itself to hurried inspection. It requires respect, and respect is shown through patience. I have observed that men who command great responsibility speak sparingly, listen carefully, and think before they respond. This is not accident. It is the result of years spent training the mind to pause. In the pause, attention gathers itself. In the gathering, power accumulates. There is a form of listening that extends beyond the ears. It is an inward stillness that allows ideas to settle before judgment is passed. Men unacquainted with this stillness often feel uneasy in its presence. They rush to fill silence with words, not realizing that silence is where instruction completes itself. Distraction is not merely an inconvenience, it is a thief. It steals coherence from thought and replaces it with fragments. A fragmented mind cannot issue clear instructions to life, and life responds with confusion in return. This confusion is then blamed upon circumstance when its source lies within. The successful men I have studied guarded their attention with greater care than their money. They knew that money could be replaced, but scattered attention could not be easily reclaimed. Once habit establishes carelessness, it resists correction. A man's private conversations with himself determine the quality of his attention. If he allows these conversations to wander aimlessly, his attention will follow. If he trains these conversations toward purpose, attention aligns itself naturally. Thought leads, attention obeys. Many imagine that great thinkers were born with unusual powers of concentration. This is a convenient myth. In truth, they cultivated concentration by refusing to indulge triviality. They learned to withdraw attention from matters that offered no return. This withdrawal is often mistaken for aloofness by observers. In reality, it is economy. The disciplined mind does not waste energy reacting to every stimulus. It selects. Selection is the mark of mastery. Wisdom withdraws from minds that approach it casually. It offers itself tentatively at first, testing the seriousness of the listener. If treated lightly, it retreats. If welcomed with respect, it returns with greater clarity. This is why the same lesson must be encountered repeatedly before it reveals its full meaning. Repetition is not redundancy, it is reinforcement. Each return to an idea allows it to strike a deeper layer of understanding. The man who listens only once hears words. The man who listens many times begins to hear implications. Impatience is the enemy of reception. It urges the mind to hurry past what it has not yet grasped. Men who yield to impatience collect phrases but miss principles. They quote wisdom without embodying it. I have noticed that men who fail to receive instruction often pride themselves on speed. They boast of how quickly they consume information, unaware that consumption without assimilation weakens judgment. Power lies not in how much one hears, but in how deeply one understands. The mind must be prepared to receive before it can retain. Preparation comes through quiet reflection. Reflection is not idleness. It is the workshop where thought is refined. Those who neglect reflection remain perpetual beginners, regardless of how long they study. There's a certain humility required to receive wisdom. This humility does not degrade the mind. It opens it. Pride closes the gate. It insists that nothing new can be learned, only confirmed. Law does not argue with pride. It simply withholds. When a man begins to discipline his attention, others notice subtle changes. He interrupts less. He observes more. His responses carry weight because they are measured. People sense that his words emerge from consideration rather than impulse. This consideration creates confidence in those around him. They trust his judgment, often without knowing why. Trust arises naturally where attention is evident, for attention signals care. Many men believe that attention should be given only to matters of immediate importance. This belief limits growth. Some of the most valuable ideas arrive quietly, without urgency. Only the attentive mind recognizes their worth. The habit of reception requires deliberate withdrawal from constant stimulation. A mind always engaged outwardly cannot organize itself inwardly. Periods of quiet are not luxuries, they are necessities. Without them, attention phrase. I have known men who transformed their fortunes by altering nothing more than how they listened. They ceased preparing responses while others spoke. They ceased skimming pages and began to read with intent. In time, opportunities began to present themselves with surprising regularity. These opportunities were not new to the world. They had always existed. What changed was the man's capacity to recognize them. Recognition is a function of attention. Attention also governs what a man rejects. The disciplined mind learns to turn away from ideas that conflict with its purpose. This turning away is as important as reception. Without it, the mind becomes cluttered with contradictions. Contradiction weakens signal. When thought points in opposing directions, life hesitates. The man then experiences delay and wonders why progress has slowed. The cause lies not in the world's resistance, but in his own divided attention. The discipline of attention demands repeated correction. The mind will wander. It must be brought back gently but firmly. This returning is itself training. Each return strengthens control. Men who persist in this practice discover that attention becomes steady without strain. What once required effort becomes natural. The mind begins to hold its course as a ship holds its heading once properly set. This steadiness allows ideas to unfold fully. Partial understanding gives way to comprehension. Comprehension gives rise to conviction. Conviction directs action. Action produces results. Others often misinterpret this process, assuming that success arises from confidence alone. They see the effect without tracing the cause. Confidence is merely the visible sign of inward order. When a man listens with full attention, he honors the source of instruction. This honor invites further instruction. Law responds to respect as surely as it responds to order. If you find yourself drawn repeatedly to certain truths, resist the urge to dismiss them as familiar. Familiarity is the threshold of mastery, not its conclusion. Remain attentive and deeper meaning will reveal itself. Guard your attention. It is the instrument through which alignment is maintained. Without it, the signal fades. With it, clarity strengthens. Repeat this discipline until it becomes habit, and let habit shape character. Speak these truths quietly, not as hope, but as fact. I give full respect to ideas worthy of power. I listen with intent, and therefore I receive. As we proceed, you will see how attention, once disciplined, allows thought to organize itself naturally, leading to the formation of purpose. What begins as listening will soon become direction. There comes a time in every serious life when thought ceases to wander aimlessly and begins without announcement to arrange itself. This moment is not dramatic. It does not arrive with certainty or explanation. It is first felt as a quiet dissatisfaction with disorder, a growing impatience with scattered effort, and a sense that the mind is no longer content to roam without direction. Many mistake this feeling for restlessness or fatigue, and in doing so, they resist the very process that would liberate them. They attempt to distract themselves, to return to old habits of amusement and noise, not realizing that the discomfort they feel is the signal of organization beginning its work. Disorder is familiar to most men. It requires no effort to maintain. Organization, by contrast, demands intention. When the mind begins to tire of disorder, it seeks economy. It begins to ask fewer questions, but of greater depth. It releases trivial curiosity and concentrates upon what truly matters. This change is subtle at first. A man notices that certain desires fall away without regret. He no longer wishes for everything. He wishes for something specific, though he may not yet name it. Desire sharpens. It loses its excess and gains edge. I have observed that this sharpening often follows disappointment. A man invests effort without reward and discovers that enthusiasm alone does not produce results. In that discovery, he either abandons hope or refines thought. Those who refine thought advance. Those who abandon drift. When thought begins to organize itself, it does so by eliminating contradiction. The mind grows weary of holding opposing ideas. It seeks agreement. This agreement is not compromise, it is selection. The man begins to choose which thoughts deserve repetition and which must be dismissed. Such selection is the beginning of power. Power cannot exist where thought is divided. Division weakens direction. Direction strengthens influence. At this stage, many experience a peculiar quiet. Old anxieties lose urgency. New questions arise, but they are not frantic. They point inward rather than outward. The man senses that answers will not come from accumulation, but from arrangement. Arrangement is the proper word. The mind does not acquire new material as much as it orders what it already possesses. Experiences long forgotten return with new meaning. Past failures reveal instruction. Mistakes cease to accuse and begin to teach. I have seen men recall incidents from youth and suddenly understand their significance. What once appeared random reveals pattern. This recognition is not coincidence. It is the mind reaching sufficient maturity to perceive sequence. During this period, the man often withdraws slightly from unnecessary association, not from dislike, but from necessity. His attention turns inward. He is not antisocial. He is selective. Selection conserves energy. Observers may misinterpret this withdrawal as coldness or uncertainty. In truth, it is preparation. The mind is assembling itself, much as an army gathers before movement. Action taken too soon would scatter forces not yet aligned. There is danger in this stage for the impatient. The desire to act before clarity fully forms can disrupt organization. Some mistake the first sense of direction for completion and rush forward prematurely. This haste often results in frustration, not because the direction was wrong, but because it was incomplete. Organization requires patience. Thought must settle into place. Each idea must find its proper relation to the whole. This settling cannot be forced. It occurs through reflection and repetition. Reflection is the practice of returning to an idea and examining it from multiple angles. not to question its truth endlessly, but to understand its implications. Through reflection, desire evolves into intention. Intention differs from wish in that it carries responsibility. The man who intends accepts consequence. He no longer seeks escape routes. This acceptance is a mark of organization. As intention strengthens, questions narrow. The mind no longer asks, "What shall I do?" It begins to ask, "How shall I do this?" The shift from what to how is the sign that purpose is forming. Purpose is not a sudden revelation. It is constructed gradually from repeated alignment between thought and desire. Each agreement strengthens it. Each contradiction weakens it. Many men never reach this point because they fear limitation. They wish to keep all options open, not realizing that unlimited options produce paralysis. Limitation focuses force. Focus creates progress. When a man allows his thinking to limit itself deliberately, he gains freedom of action. His steps become firm. He no longer hesitates at every junction. He may adjust course, but he does not abandon direction. Others begin to sense this firmness. They notice that he no longer seeks approval for every decision. He listens, but he decides. This quiet decisiveness commands respect without demanding it. I have observed that men whose thinking has organized itself speak with fewer words. They choose words carefully because they have chosen thoughts carefully. Their speech reflects their order. The mind in organization becomes intolerant of excuse. Excuses once accepted now appear hollow. The man recognizes them for what they are, devices to preserve disorder. He relinquishes them, sometimes with discomfort, but always with relief. This relinquishment often marks the end of drift. Drift survives on ambiguity. When ambiguity is removed, drift loses its refuge. At this stage, repetition assumes new importance. Ideas previously encountered return with greater force. The man does not tire of them. He tests them against experience. Each successful test deepens conviction. Conviction is not belief borrowed from another. It is belief earned through application. Only organized thought can apply consistently enough to produce conviction. There may be moments of doubt. Doubt is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of seriousness. The mind examines what it intends to commit to. Doubt passes when examination is complete. Those who flee doubt flee commitment. They prefer uncertainty to responsibility. The organized mind chooses responsibility and accepts the weight that accompanies it. As organization progresses, the man begins to notice that opportunities align with his thinking. They appear relevant, timely, and appropriate. He is no longer overwhelmed by possibility. He recognizes fit. Fit is the harmony between inner direction and outer circumstance. When fit is present, effort feels purposeful rather than forced. Work becomes expression rather than struggle. This does not mean difficulty disappears. Difficulty remains, but it loses its power to discourage. Each obstacle is measured against purpose, not comfort. Measured thus, it becomes manageable. I have known men who endured great opposition after their thinking organized itself. What distinguished them was not ease, but steadiness. They did not retreat into confusion. They revised plans without revising purpose. Revision is not abandonment. It is intelligence applied to persistence. Only organized thought can revise without surrendering. As purpose clarifies, affirmation becomes effective. Words spoken repeatedly gain power only when they reflect inner agreement. Empty repetition produces nothing. Affirmation anchored in organization produces confidence. Such a man may quietly affirm to himself, "My desire is disciplined and therefore powerful. I move in one direction with calm certainty." These statements do not excite him. They steady him. Excitement belongs to beginnings. Steadiness belongs to continuation. Others sense this steadiness and often seek counsel. They feel that this man sees further, not because he knows more, but because his thoughts are not pulling against each other. This is the fruit of organized thinking. It does not announce itself with triumph. It reveals itself through consistency. Remember this: the moment thought begins to organize itself is fragile. It must be protected from haste, ridicule, and neglect. Nourish it with attention. Strengthen it with repetition. Allow it to mature. What follows will show why this organization transforms truth from information into power, and why the same truth leaves the unprepared unchanged. It has long puzzled men that a truth capable of transforming one life can pass through another without leaving a trace. They conclude that the truth itself must be uncertain, or that success favors a chosen few. Both conclusions are convenient, and both are false. Truth is exact, and it operates without preference. The difference lies not in the message, but in the mind that receives it. I have observed men of keen intellect who remained unmoved by principles that lifted others of modest schooling into positions of influence. Intelligence alone does not confer readiness. Education alone does not confer wisdom. These may prepare the surface, but they do not tune the instrument. Reception is governed by inner agreement, not accumulation. Truth does not force itself upon the mind. It offers itself quietly and waits for recognition. Recognition is not agreement, it is acknowledgement. The mind must first see that a truth applies to itself before it can apply that truth to life. Many refuse this acknowledgement because it carries responsibility. Responsibility is the dividing line. The man who accepts responsibility for what he recognizes as true cannot remain as he was. Action must follow. Those who resist responsibility find comfort in dismissal. They call truth impractical, exaggerated, or mistimed. In doing so, they preserve familiar disorder. I have noticed that men often accept truth in theory while rejecting it in practice. They admire principles as ideas, but recoil from their demands. Such admiration produces no change. Law responds only to obedience. There is a moment, subtle yet decisive, when a man either submits to a recognized truth or turns away from it. This moment rarely announces itself. It occurs in silence, often unnoticed by the man himself. Yet upon it rests the course of his future. Some men feel threatened by truth, not because it is harsh, but because it exposes the cost of continued drift. Truth removes excuses gently but firmly. The man who has built his comfort upon excuse experiences this as an attack. Others feel relief in the presence of truth. They sense that it explains what they have long suspected but could not articulate. To such men, truth feels like recognition rather than intrusion. They lean toward it instinctively. This difference explains why identical instruction produces opposite reactions. One man grows defensive, another grows attentive. The instruction has not changed. The men have revealed themselves. Readiness is often forged through disappointment. Success achieved too easily may dull perception. Difficulty, by contrast, sharpens it. When effort fails repeatedly, the mind either abandons hope or seeks law. Those who seek law prepare themselves to receive it. I have seen men endure years of frustration only to experience clarity at a moment when they could no longer tolerate confusion. This intolerance is not impatience, it is maturity. The mind demands order because it has suffered long enough without it. Such men do not seek comfort in truth. They seek explanation. Explanation gives them command. Command restores dignity. The unprepared mind resists explanation because it exposes cause. Cause implicates the thinker. Effect can be blamed upon circumstance. This is why many prefer to discuss results rather than origins. Truth concerns itself primarily with origin. It traces outcomes back to habits of thought and decision. This tracing requires honesty. Honesty unsettles those who prefer to believe themselves victims of chance. The prepared mind welcomes this tracing. It recognizes that if thought created condition, then thought can alter condition. In this recognition lies power. Power is not granted. It is assumed through responsibility. The man who accepts responsibility ceases to ask permission of circumstance. He studies law and aligns with it. I have observed that when a man reaches this stage, others respond differently to him without knowing why. His presence feels deliberate. His words carry implication. He no longer seeks agreement. He seeks accuracy. Such a man is sometimes mistaken for severe. In truth, he is simply finished with pretense. Pretense thrives on ambiguity. Order dispels it. The same truth that empowers one man will unsettle another because it threatens the arrangement of his excuses. This is why ridicule often greets new understanding. Ridicule is defense masquerading as confidence. Men who ridicule truth do not do so because it lacks merit, but because it demands change. Change requires effort. Effort exposes weakness. The ego resists exposure. The disciplined thinker does not argue with ridicule. He recognizes it as evidence of unreadiness. Law does not persuade, it proceeds. I have found that truth repeats itself to the prepared mind in varied forms. Each repetition deepens comprehension. To the unprepared, repetition feels irritating. They complain of hearing the same ideas too often, unaware that repetition is invitation. What one calls boring, another calls clarifying. The difference lies in willingness to apply. Application is the final test of readiness. Many understand principles intellectually. Few submit their habits to them. Those who do experience change. Those who do not remain spectators. The man who applies truth notices a shift in how life answers him. Resistance lessens, cooperation increases. Events seem to arrange themselves with fewer collisions. This is not fortune. It is alignment made visible. Others observing this change often attribute it to confidence or luck. They do not see the years of inner correction that preceded it. Effects are always visible. Causes remain hidden. This invisibility tempts the unprepared to imitate results without adopting discipline. They copy mannerisms, phrases, and appearances, hoping to capture outcome without process. Such imitation fails because it ignores origin. Truth transforms only when it is allowed to govern thought and action together. Partial obedience produces partial results. Inconsistency produces confusion. There is a peculiar loneliness in this stage of development. The man who accepts truth often outpaces his former companions. Conversation changes. Interests diverge. This separation is not arrogance. It is consequence. Those who persist discover new associations forming naturally. They meet others whose thinking resonates. Cooperation becomes possible because alignment exists. Harmony replaces strain. I have noticed that when a man reaches this point, instruction seems to pursue him. He no longer hunts for answers desperately. They appear through reading, discussion, and reflection. Life meets him halfway. This meeting is not reward, it is response. The law answers readiness as surely as it answers order. The responsibility now placed upon such a man is great. Recognition without obedience leads to frustration. To know truth and ignore it is more painful than ignorance. Knowledge imposes obligation. Therefore, the prepared man moves deliberately. He does not rush to proclaim understanding. He tests it quietly. He applies it privately. Results speak without announcement. Affirm these truths calmly, not as hope, but as acknowledgement. I accept responsibility for what I recognize as true. I do not resist instruction meant to strengthen me. In the next movement, you will see how alignment, once accepted, becomes command, how causes begin to obey when thought, desire, and decision stand in agreement. When thought, desire, and belief reach agreement, life ceases to resist and begins to respond. This response is often mistaken for fortune by those who do not understand law. In truth, it is obedience. Causes obey when they are clearly commanded, and command is impossible where inner conflict remains. Most men attempt to control effects while neglecting causes. They strain against circumstance, applying force where harmony is required. Force exhausts, harmony multiplies. The man whose inner life is aligned no longer pushes blindly, he directs. Direction is not noise. It does not announce itself loudly. It moves with certainty and expects compliance. Life answers this certainty because certainty reflects order, and order is recognizable to law. I have observed that when alignment becomes habitual, hesitation disappears. Decision replaces debate. The mind no longer entertains endless alternatives. It selects a course and commits itself. Commitment seals the signal. Many fear commitment because it excludes other possibilities. They imagine loss where there is only focus. Focus concentrates power. Power expressed steadily reshapes circumstance. Once a man decides with inner agreement, his actions gain weight. Even small efforts produce disproportionate results. Others notice that matters seem to arrange themselves around him. They say he is fortunate. He knows better. What has changed is not the world, but the quality of instruction it receives from him. Life responds to clarity. Confusion produces delay. Alignment produces movement. There is a moment when the aligned man recognizes that he is no longer chasing outcomes. He is governing causes. This recognition is quiet but profound. It replaces urgency with assurance. Assurance does not mean certainty of ease. Difficulty remains part of growth. The difference is that difficulty no longer threatens direction. It becomes material for refinement rather than reason for retreat. The man in alignment revises plans without revising purpose. He adapts without surrendering. This adaptability is mistaken by observers as flexibility alone. In truth, it is intelligence guided by commitment. Alignment demands repetition. The mind must be reminded of its direction until direction becomes instinctive. Habit is the servant of alignment. Without habit, clarity dissolves under pressure. I have seen men reach alignment briefly, only to lose it through neglect. They assumed understanding would sustain itself. It does not. Order must be maintained. Drift waits patiently for neglect. The aligned man guards his inner conversation carefully. He does not indulge thoughts that contradict his purpose. This is not repression, it is selection. Selection preserves strength. Others may accuse such a man of stubbornness. They do not understand that he is no longer undecided. Decision appears rigid only to those who remain uncommitted. As alignment deepens, the man's presence changes. He does not seek to impress. He does not explain unnecessarily. His calm becomes persuasive. People respond because they sense certainty, not because they are convinced by argument. This certainty extends to action. The man acts at the appropriate time, not from impulse, but from readiness. Timing improves because thought is no longer scattered. Readiness replaces haste. Opportunities appear aligned with purpose. They fit rather than distract. The man recognizes them quickly because they correspond with his thinking. He no longer feels overwhelmed by choice. The unaligned man is burdened by possibility. Every option pulls at him. The aligned man experiences relief in limitation. Limitation channels effort. At this stage, the law of cause and effect becomes visible. The man observes that certain thoughts produce certain results with dependable regularity. Doubt dissolves because evidence accumulates. Accumulated evidence strengthens conviction. Conviction stabilizes behavior. Behavior establishes reputation. Reputation attracts cooperation. Cooperation accelerates achievement. Others often attribute this chain to charisma or leadership. These are names for effects. The cause remains alignment. The aligned man understands that authority does not require domination. It arises naturally from consistency. When words and actions agree, trust forms without demand. I have noticed that such men are often consulted even outside their field of expertise. People sense that they think clearly, and clear thinking is transferable. Order invites reliance. This reliance carries responsibility. The aligned man must remain vigilant. Complacency invites drift. Success does not abolish law, it merely proves it. There will be moments when results slow. The aligned man does not panic. He examines cause rather than blaming effect. He asks not, "Why is this happening?" but "What adjustment is required?" Adjustment is the privilege of alignment. Only the man who knows his direction can adjust without confusion. The drifter adjusts constantly and arrives nowhere. As alignment matures, effort becomes efficient. The man accomplishes more with less strain. This efficiency is often misunderstood as ease. In truth, it is economy born of order. Economy extends beyond action to emotion. The aligned man does not waste feeling on resentment or fear. These emotions disrupt signal. He acknowledges them briefly and releases them. Release is possible because he no longer identifies with impulse. He identifies with purpose. Purpose governs impulse. The world responds to this governance. Resistance diminishes. Cooperation increases. Even opposition clarifies direction rather than derailing it. I have observed that at this stage, repetition takes on its final role. It is no longer instruction alone, but reinforcement. The man returns to fundamental principles not because he doubts them, but because they sustain alignment. This return appears boring to the unprepared. To the aligned, it is stabilizing. Foundations are revisited not to be admired, but to be strengthened. Affirmation now becomes command. Words spoken inwardly carry authority because they reflect agreement. The man may say quietly, "I command causes by governing my thoughts." What I recognize and obey becomes my power. These are not hopes, they are descriptions. Alignment transforms life from reaction into direction. The man ceases to be pushed by circumstance and begins to move it. This movement is not dramatic. It is steady, cumulative, and unmistakable. Others may never understand how it happened. Explanation is unnecessary. Law does not require applause. Remember this final truth. Alignment is not attained once and kept forever without effort. It is practiced. It is chosen repeatedly. Each day presents the option to maintain order or return to drift. Those who choose order find that causes obey with increasing precision. Those who neglect it rediscover confusion. You have now seen how the unseen selects its students, how thought organizes itself, how truth transforms selectively, and how alignment becomes command. This knowledge is ancient. Its application is always new. Whether it remains information or becomes power depends upon what you do next.